if you think about a master and an apprentice that work together, these two really are the height of it. And they really show us what can be done by working together. Chato started by coming to Obizan and asking for help. And then he stuck around. Okay? And then he stuck around. And the next thing you know, he's assisting him with all kinds of things. And then the next thing you know, he became his actual mentee. And so a number of years later, Chato is actually quite fluent in the language, and he's counted on and depended upon to translate and to transcribe. Okay. The dedication is what's so important here, hey, for us to recognize. And they are a true teaching in that way. Obizan in his dedication to community and to the spirit, Chato in his dedication to his mentor, and in part then too, he's becoming dedicated to the community and to the spirit in the same way. So I'd like very much to welcome my uncle, my friend, and my nephew, my brother. Welcome them to come in and visit with us for a little bit, hey? We didn't want anything real formal. Instead, we just want to do something that's reflective of who we are as a people, eh? As Anishinaabe people. So please, instead of clapping, just do a ho for Chato and Obizan.
Miigwech, Pasqua de Mukwe for that introduction. Bonjour, Dinawe Magnedug. Ombishke Benesni, Dishnakas, Dawazaga Gunning, Dunjaba. Shke Minguchima 2006 ki Maji with the Nuki Maga or Obizan. The Gagwega Kingdom on getting away with it. And when the Ma, the name Dagasi and the Viajaya and Manungum, the we do Kazi and the we the Magi and Kanada Magui and the Shichigaya and you. Trying to think where to start. So I think it goes, like thinking about this whole process goes way back for me. I grew up in LCO. My mom raised me, my grandma's helped, I had uncles around, and I had a really good family. My mom was always very supportive of what my grandma had going on, and my grandma always had, she always had us in the woods, always had us gathering food, all through the year, snaring rabbits. She was the one that taught me how to shoot a gun. So there was a lot of those things that my grandma did that my mom, I talked to her now about it, and she's kind of like, she kind of laughs because she didn't always want to do that, but grandma would call and she'd call for us kids to go, and we'd go, and I started getting in trouble younger, so I got the privilege to stay with my grandma. So I learned a lot from her. She knew a lot. She was a storyteller. She was a music teacher. She knew a lot of plants. She was 92 when she passed. She was born in 1914, so she knew a lot of old days. But I also had some uncles, some really good uncles who always took me to ceremonies. And I think about my whole life and what I really attribute to a lot of my help is our ceremonial drums. We have 2 ceremonial drums back in LCO, but they're also all through Mille Lacs, even Eastern through Flambeau. Menominees have them, Potawatomi. So what happened was, like, in my teenage years, 12, 13, something went wrong. I was missing something. I was lacking something. So I searched for that through other venues, drinking, drugs, stuff like that, gangs, and I just started getting locked up. By the time I was 15, I was already in Lincoln Hills for a year, get out, and it was like back to back. I was always continuously in jails. Went to prison when I was 20. got it 5 years. So I got out, and I didn't have no children yet. I got out, and I had a daughter, Tatiana. She was born in 2005. And what had happened was her mother also went to prison 3 months after she was born. But by that time, I was already wanted again. So my family got together, her family got together and said, well, it's your responsibility. Turn yourself in, finish off your time, and take care of this child. So that's what I did. Went back to prison. Sat almost another year. But when I was in there, like I started really analyzing my life, thinking about my life. And I started really thinking about like what went wrong, when it went wrong, when I was happy. So I started thinking about that. And I thought about being home. Because by this time I already moved to Minneapolis at age 19. So I was in the city, and I was in a whole nother state. And you know, I was like, I was just like constantly looking. Like I said, you know, I was running with the gangs, running with a Mexican gang at that. And I remember when I first got to prison, I went to St. Cloud, and I was like, well, I'm Indian, I might as well go to Sweat Lodge. Go to Sweat Lodge. I get into the Sweat Lodge, and all of a sudden this guy starts speaking Lakota, and I was like, you know, it just sounded strange. I was like, I never heard Lakotas before. I was born in the middle of Wisconsin. All of a sudden there's like this guy speaking this funny language, singing these funny songs, and I was just like to me it was just so foreign. Like I got out, like I couldn't even be in there. Like I've still never been into a church to this day, and like I would like almost like compare it to that. Like that's how foreign it was to me. And I got out and I was like, man, this isn't right, you know. Like I still, you know, and it was like that belonging that, you know, I was talking about, like that wasn't there again. So then I just went through prison, back to my old ways. So back to like I was talking about 2005, I had my daughter back in prison again. It was and it was at the end of 2005, beginning of 2006. I was in Rush City, and Obazan was the one that was coming in that prison. So I was like, well, I'm back in prison again. I'm Indian, I might as well go to Sweat Lodge. So I went to Sweat Lodge, and the difference was Obazan started talking. And it was like, man, that's my language. He started singing those songs, and I remember songs from back home as a kid, and I was like, man, those are our songs. So all of a sudden it was like some kind of fulfillment there, you know, that I started feeling better. And at the same time, I like started analyzing my life, you know, like I said, like when was I happy, what was I doing? I thought about my grandma, I thought about those drums. So there was these things that were happening. And it's funny because I had a conversation with a friend of mine just recently, Harry Dog, we call him. And he was like, man, bro, remember you told me this when we were in prison that you were going to do this? And I didn't remember the conversation, but I must have kind of knew what I wanted to do at that time for whatever reason. So I got out, and Obazan used to invite all of us inmates. Come over to my house when you get out. I sweat every Wednesday. Continue what you're doing here. I'll help you. So I took him up on that. Went to his house. Started going to sweats with him. Right away, we had big drum ceremonies in LCO. Made my kettle of food, took my tobacco, went into our drums. And I haven't missed a drum since. Started sweating with Obazan. But at the same time too, is like I was searching other people as well, and I just kind of kept staying with Obazan, the way he was teaching me. I was asking him, what else can I do? I'm trying to stay sober, I'm trying to stay out of trouble. And he was like, drive for me, kind of like Roxanne was talking about. He's constantly doing funerals, constantly doing ceremonies, namings, whatnot, whatever you can think of, he probably does it. And he does it throughout, from Red Lake to Sault Ste. Marie. We're constantly on the go. So he's like, drive for me. I need someone to help me. Drive for me. They get us hotel rooms. I'll give you some gas money. So sure enough, I started driving for him. Soon after that, he said, you're going to learn how to speak Ojibwe. And how I'm going to teach you to speak Ojibwe is through our funeral services. I don't want to teach you these nursery rhymes. I don't know, he has some kind of saying he always says. And, so that's what we did. We sat down. There was a handful of us. Melissa was there. Leanne was there. There was John Benjamin was there. There was a handful of us there. And we would meet up at his house, and he'd have a list of paper, and he would teach us like, I don't know if you guys ever seen our we've published a book on funerals. So there's a little talk. It's like a half a page of when you first get up to talk and say this is what the tobacco's for, like that. And that was like our first lesson. He'd record it, and he'd take out words, and what I started doing was I started writing out word for word everything that was on those tapes. We'd do these little tapes, and then we just continue on like that. And that was one of my main forms of learning was not only just sitting with him, but transcribing those tapes. But going into learning, going into working with Obazan, I had your public school education for Ojibwe language. I knew animals, numbers, and that was about it. Probably half of them were wrong, and and so that's kind of where I started. So I mean, I wasn't already an advanced speaker at that point, and we just worked that way. I spent a lot of time with Obazan. I would drive up. He was living in Hinckley. I was living in the cities. I'd work. I'd drive up and go see him. I went to almost every funeral with him. He runs a Meday Lodge. I was going to every Meday Lodge session with him. And finally, what happened, which actually got me into this Master Apprentice program, which is actually a job that we have, is I quit my job. My boss at the time, I was painting cars. And he says, I need to get these cars done. You know, you have to make a choice. You're gonna paint these cars for me and get them out because people are waiting for them, or you're gonna, quit and I got to get somebody else. So that's what I did. I quit. We were sitting out at the Meday Lodge, and I just felt that was more important. And so from that point on, we were Mille Lacs, Band of Ojibwe. They were the ones that helped us to be able to do this, because as like Roxanne was saying, we're always busy. We've been gone since Thursday. Took off, and then we're in over in Mille Lacs for a couple days because we have some funeral services we're taking care of right now. Drove down last night. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna drive right back after this. So it is that busy for us in our lives. We don't have much time for ourselves in taking care of this kind of work. But like that was kind of like my life that I think about, like where I could have been. I'm almost 40 now, and I'm still alive. I can speak my language. I know a lot of our ceremonies, and we help a lot of people. And I think that's Obazan always talks about, like, as an Anishinaabe, we have to have like this purpose in our lives of what we do, how we live our lives, what we should do with our lives, and that's what we do. I guess that's what we're supposed to be doing right now. It takes a lot, right? Like. So when I started working with Obazan, for you that are learning, you understand that there's like 4 verb types, all this kind of stuff. Like Obazan didn't know none of that. He still doesn't understand it. If you ask him 4 verb types, he wouldn't understand what that means. And so I was looking for those answers, right? Like, what's this A form, B form that people are talking about? Like, and he used to always get mad at me. It's not like English. It's not like English, and it never made sense, you know. Like, I'd ask him one way, and he'd give it to me in a A form sentence. I'd ask him again, like, what I didn't understand, and he'd give it to me in a B form sentence, and it'd throw me off. So what I did is I started going to college. First went to Mille Lacs, and I took classes with Millie Benjamin, Dorothy Sam. Did that first semester. Transferred on to MCTC. Took classes with Rick Greshik. He was really good with the grammar. That's kind of where it kick-started me. And then from there, transferred into U of M. Took classes with Dennis Jones, John Nichols, Brendan Fairbanks. But at the same time, right? Like, at the same time, I always continued to work with Obazan. So I'd go to class, I'd learn some things, I'd go back and I'd talk to Obazan, and he'd have his own ways of saying things. So he'd correct me, talk like this sounds a little bit better. And so that's just how we worked, right? Like, I'd go learn from him, learn from them. But I remember one thing that I always think about when I talk to students is that he always reminded me, you know, like, we need our college education to get us through life, right? Like, we don't have a college education, we're never gonna have good jobs. So if we do that, it shows the white man, like, hey, I got a piece of paper, I can do something, right? It's kind of worthless in the jobs that we do, but still, we gotta have it. And but one thing he always reminded me as I did that, as I chased that piece of paper, was how much time I work learning the white man's world, work on our language and our culture, and that'll carry you through everything. So I think I took that really to heart, you know, and I really focused on learning our language. And I remember being in those libraries, and I'd be frustrated, like, trying to read these academic papers, 11 o'clock at night in the library or something, and I'd just close my books, pull out a recording of Ojibwe and start transcribing. Then it would just take my mind somewhere else. And I know Gijik isn't gonna, I don't think he's gonna do his keynote now that we're shortening everything, but I seen he was gonna talk about doing transcribing. I encourage everybody, you know, because the thing is we don't have a lot of our speakers that we've had. We don't have a lot of time. A lot of our speakers are getting older, or they're overworked. Try to sit down with Obazan and have a session with him. He'll cancel out on you, you know, like every other time, because that's just how busy we are. Either we're busy doing funerals or something, or he just needs a rest. So it's hard, but the way that you could do it is you could take recordings. There's tons of recordings. We've done 9 hours of recording that you could find on YouTube that we put up, that we recorded at
27 hours.
27 hours? 27 hours, 9 days. That's what it was. It took us 9 days, 27 hours. Recorded these videos at University of Minnesota. You can find them on YouTube. There's Ojibwe videos, and there's like a equal counterpart of English. We've written 2 books. We've written 28 articles. And that keeps being recycled through different newspapers. It's under Obazan on YouTube, right? Under Obazan on YouTube. So that's just for him alone. I mean, there's many speakers that if you just ask people, if you ask any of us that are working with the language, I guarantee any of us that work with the language have anywhere between 50, 100, 200 recordings of multiple speakers. It's a great way to learn. When I would travel, especially too, I was traveling all the time. Like, I never even turned on music. I just always just played recordings. Remember, I had this Norman Clark recording, and he just would repeat words, and I didn't know what he was saying, but I just would just listen to it. Hour and a half up, hour and a half down. Then I would just repeat with them. And then once I started learning those words, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But what it did for me was it gave me an ear for the language, but I would also mimic him as I talked, so then I started sounding like our speakers. And I think that's one of the biggest gripes. I know, like Obazan, and I've heard other speakers say, is like we don't talk like our elders. We have a funny way of speaking. So I think for myself, that was really one good way of doing that, is just always talking to myself when I spent a lot of time in the car, or during just speaking with our elders. Okay, I guess I could like take a pause there, and if people have any kind of questions on it, I guess I'll kind of went. Linda told me to do a timeline, and I didn't even pull it out of my pocket, so I'm sure I went all over the place with my story. But it's hard, right? This isn't an easy journey. You know, anybody that's learning language understands that it's not it's not easy. I could speak my language. I could conversate with elders, but at the same time, I've been working hard at this since 2006, so about almost 14 years. 13, 14 years, so it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, but it pays off. And like I said too, right? Like we all come from backgrounds that I suppose we're not always proud of. Mine, like I said, I've served a lot of time behind the wall, in cells. So I carry a lot of that with me, and that was a way to help me. But I know as Anishinaabe, we have a lot of trauma in our communities. We have a lot of shame. Uzan always talks when he does ceremonies, especially like at Madela and stuff. He always talks about we have Anishinaabe spirit, and to feed that spirit is through our language and our culture. So if we're not doing that, right, then there's something wrong with us. And you can see it within all of our Anishinaabe people. And as soon as you see people start learning their language and start going to ceremonies and doing those type of things, you see that change, right? Like no matter what it is, right? Some people just don't have a knack, and I've seen the same people at the same language table for 20 years, and they're still working on their speech. But no matter, even if they still got that far, you still see that, right? You can still see within them they're happy. There's a fulfillment. They're doing something, right? They're doing something every day to like learn and to feed that spirit that we have. So I just encourage everybody just to continue to learn your language, speak your language, and there's a lot of healing that we have to do. So I guess I'll end with that for now. Unless somebody has some questions, I'll pass it over to Obazan. He said he'll fill in all the gaps that I forget to talk about. Aho, miigwech, bisandogi.
Yeah. You notice once did he say how handsome I am? Charo's right. I first met him in the sweat lodge in Rust City Prison. Mawa Bukajaba de Ma Binjana Medu de Swimming. And I haven't been able to get rid of him since. He's always been with me. I can count on my fingers the times that he's missed, driving me to do various ceremonies, and he's always sat there and listened. So he is a fluent speaker. He's one of the best. I go to ceremonial dances and different functions, and he gets up to talk in Ojibwe. He sounds really good. We always tell him, we give his honor tagas. So, the key to all of this for you learners is to find some fluent speakers to work with. I just found out last night, Mille Lacs has about 4,700 people, band members, and we only have about 20 fluent speakers left. A few years back it was 75 speakers. So there's not many of us out here, but that is one way to learn the language, is to work closely with a fluent speaker. Chado was telling you, When he's traveling, he's always listening to his tapes of people that are fluent speaking the language. You pick up the delivery, even if you don't understand the words. You need to listen closely. Because of what's happening, and I've noticed, I know the language well enough. When some of our new speakers get up, they don't sound right. They don't sound like our old Ojibwe. I call them our textbook Ojibwe speaking young people. You know, I have to give them credit for learning what they have. But with people like Chato, who has worked with me, Mike Sullivan is one of the best speakers who work closely with the Mick. Babito Gizigukwe, Melissa Boyd, who has worked closely with me. She sounds really good when she talks. She's able to do ceremonies. In fact, I have her getting up to talk at our funerals, handling for various sections. So you can tell those that have been working around those fluent speakers. The other ones is kind of like they learn the language word by word, much like they do in the Chimook schools. You know, you write up on a chalkboard a word and then they learn it. That's not the way I've ever done it with the people I've worked with. I can't see myself doing that. They have to hear me speaking all the words and hearing the delivery, because you know what's going to happen? Up the road, we are going to have Ojibwe speakers that just don't sound right. In fact, I know some who are teaching, even their students sound like that. Minotavos is Siwaga, Gaki Kitawat, Ojibwe Muat. Skate show we win him. Listen to Baba to we are gay Kendanga Ojibwe Muan me the Shma. Gay get the Minotavos what. That's what we have to. I'm not being critical, not criticizing people. I have to give a lot of you credit for spending so much time on the language. Chato mentioned that. I always told him, you know, we have to spend hours learning the Ojibwe language. Think of all the hours that we spent trying to work and learn the Chimookaman's books, studying late in the night, and not doing that with our language. We have to spend the time. And I always say, you know, you need to take a look at the spiritual aspect of learning the language. One of the things I always said, Gege Tamenwenda Nawa Hangyo, Manidug, non Tababa to know, or the Nishana Bemiwan and Abject to water, Kashmini Gosiang de Wayang. Those Manidug will be happy to hear us as a people again. Once we learn their language, you hear the Ojibwe being spoken across the land. That's what we have to work at. And Chato talked about our spirit within. When we're babies, we have that spirit that enters us, and that spirit is an Anishinaabe. And what you have to do in your lifetime is do everything possible that is Anishinaabe related, including speaking our language, going to our ceremonies, putting your tobacco every day. And if you don't do that, if you don't nurture that Anishinaabe spirit, it's going to feel like something is missing within. There's almost like a pain within you. And that's what causes a lot of our people to get into negative behaviors, get into drinking, getting into alcohol, getting into crazy behaviors. because they're not at peace within. Gawin sakab mapinjana ayasiwag. They're not at peace. So you have a real spiritual focus that needs to be there when you learn the language. You know, it's what we're given, and it's what's going to carry you through your life. You know, I talk about that spirit that we have within us. You know, Charo and I are going to leave here. We're going to be doing a funeral up in Mille Lacs. And our job will be to send the spirit off of that gal who passed on. There is another existence for us beyond this world. So there is no doubt in my mind how important that spirit is to us within us. Don't listen to that damn Chimukaman and all those lies they told us over the years. Remember your Anishinaabe. Take pride in what we have been given. So, you know, in my teaching also, I never could see myself standing at a chalkboard writing words out piece by piece. That's where you get people speaking the language that they're not, their delivery doesn't sound right. You know, I've heard a lot of fluent speakers over my time. And like I say, that's what Charo has acquired in working with me, and what Papi got with working with any other fluent speaker. And Mike Sullivan, Papito, and we got Nawigijike. I don't even know where he's at. Is he here, or did he go take off? He's upstairs? Oh, Anyway, I have all kinds of things to say, and I don't know, Charo, I talked about how it was always my dream to have someone to pass on the language to in our ceremonies, and that's what has happened with Charo. I keep telling him, you know, he knows all that stuff, but he hesitates to get up there and do some of those ceremonies. But there has been times where he had to, and that's how those Manidug work. Once we went to Red Lake, I was sick, I wasn't feeling good. I'll be damned, he did the whole funeral. And also, just last week I ended up in the hospital, and we had a wake and funeral to do, and he had to go and do the funeral. I told him those Manidug will work that way. They'll get you up there doing what you know. It's what's happened to me when I was younger. Funerals, my brother had passed away. My biological brother hadn't been raised with that family. And my sister-in-law arranged to have somebody to do the funeral, so we're there the day of the funeral, and the old guy gets up and said, you know, my father passed away in the last year. I can't do the funeral. And I'm sitting there thinking, find time to tell us. Well, guess who ended up doing the funeral? So I had no choice. We're also out in Ojibwe doing the Midday Lodge out there. We had 2 old men that were doing those lodge ceremonies. Both of them ended up sick. Guess who ended up in that chair doing them and putting people through the lodge? So I was telling them, him and Bradley Harrington works with us. You're not going to have a choice. They're going to make it happen one way or another. So please don't let me get sick again. Get up there and do it. So the other thing is you learn the language. I find this happening so much. So many of our young people, Charo talked about the trauma we have gone through as a people. And a lot of that has done damage to us. We have low self-worth, low self-image. And all of a sudden we find a language. And we want to do all these ceremonies and different things to build ourselves up in our eyes, to feed our own ego. That's not what these ceremonies are for. I'm so embarrassed sometimes when I travel and I hear Anishinaabe people tell me their names. I just shudder when I hear the name that they have been given. You can tell these people do not know what they're doing. Too many of our people use that language in that way to build themselves up in the eyes of our people. That is not meant to be that way. So don't do that. And then also I run into a lot of people, when I do our ceremonies, I have not created these. These are ceremonies that have been passed on to me. And then we have a young person coming along. We went to Mukazot, thinks he knows everything, and wants to make changes to maybe to a funeral or to some ceremony that I'm doing. They don't know what they're doing. So a lot of our people are using that language in that way to build yourself up. You continue doing that, you're not going to learn anymore. You know, those money do are going to put a stop to that. So, one of the things I can say about Chato, he comes from a hard-working family. I've always noticed he's highly motivated. He's pursued the language aggressively. One of his mottos, he always would keep saying to me, he'd say, let's get to work, time's a wasting. That's Chato for you. And he has the same attitude about the language. You know, we'd go out to Oklahoma City. Mille Lacs has a hotel out there. We spent a week doing our writing up there. And we'd start like something like 8 o'clock in the morning, take a lunch break, and work until about 4, 5, 6 o'clock. That's what a hard worker he is. And that's what you need to do as you work the language. Don't piss and moan around about how hard it is. Just get down to it and learn that language, because it's really critical to us. You know, like I told you, that the stats, the situation in Mille Lacs, we got 20 fluent speakers out of 4,700 people. That's sad, and I'm sure some of the reservations are even worse than that. So time's a wasting, as Chato said. Let's get down to get the language. One of the things that I always do too when I teach a language, I always make sure I teach them the nasty words. I always tell them, if you don't learn those nasty words, our old people are not going to understand you. You're not going to understand them either. You know, we just buried a friend of ours last week, and I was telling him my last conversation with that elder. Of course, it was nasty. And then by the time I got done, we were talking, the nurses interrupted and had to do something for him. But also what's nasty in our language is not like what the Chimukaman considers nasty. You know, you speak nasty, it's sinful, it's a disgrace and all that. Not in our language, everything is pretty normal. You know, all your organs considered normal, this normal course of the language. So Huh?
Oh, your organs.
Your organs, yeah. The other thing that's worked good for us, and I'm not sure if this is the right terminology. Chato knows I don't know a lot of that other technology and all of that other linguistic stuff. But we work what is called Apple TV, right? And we have a TV set up in my house, and I'll talk in Ojibwe, and Chato's sitting in opposite from me, typing up what I've said in Ojibwe, and it comes up on the screen. Got that screen cut in half. We have the Ojibwe on one side, and then the translation at each side. And I think that's helped a lot of them to learn Ojibwe, because they have to be able to type up all those words and also do the translation. Right now I'm working with Migas Gonzalez. She's come moving along really good on that. I've worked with Bobito on that also. And then we mentioned already the YouTube videos. UMD approached us about taping me talking about the various ceremonies we go through in life from birth on to death, also beyond. And I chose to share a lot of that stuff. I know a lot of people are not happy that I did that, but I can't see why I would want to take that to the grave with me. It doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the Anishinaabe. And that's why I've shared that it's available somewhere for people to reference and to eventually know how to do. And we also have our books. We have 2 that have already been published. Andre King, Changing Worlds, that's about our traditional funerals. And also Nimi Ding, that's about our ceremonial dances. One of the places you want to go to these dances, there are a lot of people getting up and talk to in Ojibwe. They give you an opportunity to hear. Also, we have another one that's coming out. They're working on it now. We did some articles with Anajimu and the Mille Lacs papers, I think 28 articles that we, Chato and I worked on. They're going to be published in the book, and that'll be available to you also soon, also in Ojibwe and in the translation. My history, let me talk about translating first. One of the hardest things to do is to translate our language. You know, I do a lot of the ceremonies, and sometimes I'm asked to do the translation, and that's one of the hardest to do, because the English language is inadequate when it comes to Ojibwe. You can't really capture totally what is being said in Ojibwe when you're doing a translation, so it frustrates the hell out of me. Wears me out more than the actual Ojibwe delivery itself. So that's why you got to leave that English language alone. It's not good. My history, just a little bit about my history. As I look back, I think probably this was what was meant for me to do. I was taken in by these older people when I was 4 months old. My father had been in the war and had an injury, so my biological mother was afraid my crying might set off his PTSD, whatever you call it. So she gave me up to these old people. And these old people that raised me knew hardly any English. I had no choice but to learn it. So that's how I learned my language. And also, the old man that raised me was a drum keeper, ceremonial drum keeper. They also went to the day lodge, so that was all my upbringing. They also gave me those teachings about respect. One of the things that I always talk about, and I've had other elders say, I remember them saying that people don't listen to what I have to say. But one of the things that I noticed about the teachings of respect, they always told me, if you don't listen to what we're telling you, you're going to grow up and not have any appreciation for the spirit of your fellow man. You could go along and kill them if you continue living that way, not listening. And I've heard Anishinaabe communities talk about, like they have functions for their elders, for their people, like a Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving. Some of them won't go because the kids are so unruly and disrespectful. And also, I was thinking about the city of St. Paul. They had a lot of shootings over there. 29 people died from shooting. That's because a lot of those people, whether they're black, white, or Anishinaabe, are not covering those teachings of respect with their children. And that's what has happened. And I can see up the road this also happening in our Anishinaabe communities. We don't get back to teaching our kids those teachings of respect. We're going to have a lot of shootings, a lot of deaths on the reservation because of it. So I've said this several times, no one really listens, but anyway, I pretty much ended up what I'm doing as a result of what's happened in my life. I guess those Manidug intended me to do this. And I keep busy, like Chato said. We're traveling constantly. Even yesterday I had a call and I was supposed to be resting. I assume it's an OD. Young man in the hospital, no brain activity, they're probably going to unplug him. And his sister called me to get an Anishinaabe name for him, which I did. I used my tobacco. She called back later and I gave her an Anishinaabe name. So I do a lot of that. We have, we just had an elder that they found a lump on her breast, and we did a ceremony for her. And I found out yesterday they were able to remove any cancer that she had. And while she was while they put her under, she said, "Bingo." I said, "That's a true Anishinaabe woman." That's about all I have to say. It's just been a joy working with Chato. It always hasn't been rosy either, let me tell you. One of the teachings I remember so strongly, never talk back to your relatives or your elders, no matter what you say to you. I had an old man that I don't think there's a nice word he's ever said to me. He was always critical and loved to humiliate me in front of people. But not once did I say or answer or talk back to me. That's what those old people taught me. He said, whenever we give you heck, don't say I know, or you're going to get a whip. So, Chato, a lot of times wouldn't follow that, and he would just piss me off galore. I tell him, see that doorway over there, when they go out, don't let it hit you in the ass on your way out. So, but we'd be friends again. We would work it out the next day. We continued working that one. Just find a fluent speaker to work with. That's my advice to you. You need to tell me. Are we over our time? No. Ego na bakan, we touching done.
Anybody got questions or anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say that, what's it? Nawagijig? Hey, Nawagijig. Where the hell are you? Anide? Oh, there's a weast in there? Oh. I'm saying Pandralak is in good hands. Nawagijig worked with a Mick quite a bit. Oh, okay. And he's a good speaker. So it was good. Mick was able to do that for you all here. I can't think of anything else. Do you want to ask some questions? You must know it all then. You got no questions to ask. Did you hear about this? The Anishinaabe in Des Moines was at the state fair. She was lost. And every time she'd go to the security or the police, she'd tell them, they ended up taking to their porty potty all the time. You know what they thought she was saying. And there was these Anishinaabe living in nearby. Some Chimukaman must have ran off the road in those horse and buggy days. They had a wagon. They sunk in the mud, so they went to this. They went to this Anishinaabe home. And of course, none of them knew English, and they kept pleading with them to come out and help them push their wagon out. And all those Anishinaabe would say is, "Wigwanan. What is it you want?" Kept saying that. After a while, the Chimukaman got mad and he said, "Yes, the dam's wagon isn't in." Shut the hell up. All they ever said is, "Wigwanan." All right, me. No questions, I guess it's a session. Miigwech, Bizendow Yig.
Miigwech. In Fond du Lac, there are even less fluent speakers. I would hesitate even to count them because there are so few. But we're fortunate. Mille Lacs is a sister band. It's not that far away. In Bad River, my home community, two of our last language speakers recently passed away. It's really important, eh? It's really important. We're really lucky in some ways that we have what we have, but it's escaping very quickly. So do look around, do develop those important relationships with these people, and think about how do we send this forward, since it's so critical. And we have little ones around here that talk about how critical it is. They're the reason why this is so important, eh? We have all kinds of little ones running around here. And so I want you to just give some thought about that and recognize what Chato talks about how hard that work is and the kind of dedication that it takes. Okay? But please do, pick that work up, huh? We're going to take a quick little break, and then at 11:30 we'll run back into session. At 12:30 we'll come out and we'll have lunch, and we'll have the Oshke Gijik singers here in the main area. So please hang around. Don't forget to fill out your evaluations after each session and make sure they get in the box with your ticket with your name. Miigwech.